My name is Or Adi, and I will be the facilitator of today's session. The iVision Live program was developed in the World Zionist Organization Department for Diaspora Affairs, that I'm proud to be its American East Coast Shlicha. From Jerusalem, the department is being led by a member of the WZO Executive Board, Mrs. Gusti Yoshua Braverman, and works with a staff of shlichim and educators in 36 different countries around the world. We are proud to develop and offer programs that bring the voices of young Israeli artists, activists, and educators, and to elaborate the discussion around them for maintaining the role of Israel as part of their modern Jewish identity. The iVision Live is our response to these weird days of the coronavirus, one that can offer daily sessions with Israeli speakers about diverse topics and points of interest. Today, I'm proud to say that we are broadcasting this Zoom session for all over the world. We have people from United States, from Argentina, from Canada, from Israel, of course, from Hungary, the Netherlands, Russia, Germany, and many other countries. The fact that we can all gather together and learn and discuss our connection in Israel is very exciting. Today, we're going to talk about veganism, but a few technical notes. So this Zoom is being screened on Facebook. So if you do not wish to be filmed, please close your camera. And another thing, I'm going to be speaking to you today from my kitchen and from my living room. So I have my team from the Department for Diaspora Affairs, my colleagues, Ro'i, Ori, Matan, and Yaniv, that are helping me to facilitate this session. And they will help me to, jump from one spot to another. And yes. Feel free to make comments and ask questions in the chat box below. I will make an effort to answer your questions during the session, and if not, 100% sure that I will answer your questions at the end of the session. Before we will start, let me begin by talking a little bit about myself. So I'm vegan, and I'm 30 years old, and for the last 7.5 years, I've been vegan, but I'm not that special because together with me, there are about more than 250,000 people that lives in Israel that refer themselves as vegan. Why? When did this happen? You'll have to wait until we will put the beautiful cauliflower that I have here in the oven. So today we're going to cook and talk veganism. We will begin with a quick recipe, and I hope you all prepared in advance the cauliflower as was mentioned in the emails that you received after signing up. If you didn't, don't worry, it won't take too much time. By the way, at the end of this session, you will be able to get the full recipe in our Facebook page, WZO, Department for Diaspora Affairs. Let's start with opening the oven and setting it to 430 degrees Fahrenheit or 220 degrees Celsius. I already did it, so the next step would be to pour a handful of olive oil into your hands and massage the cauliflower. So I already had the cauliflower cooked in a pot for 30 minutes. And so now it's very soft. So you have to, when you massage the cauliflower, you have to be very careful so you won't hurt the leaves. I'm going to add a little bit more of cauliflower. Now, this dish is super trendy. If you visited Israel in the last few years, you probably went to Hamiznon, a very trendy restaurant by Chef Eyal Shani, who serves everything in pita. And this is one of his most famous dishes. And when we built that recipe, it was inspired by his own dish. After I I put olive oil on the cauliflower. I'm going to put some salt. So I'm sprinkling salt. Make sure that since the cauliflower is round, you have to make sure that you have salt all over. And now I'm going to put some pepper on it. And the next step is to put it in the oven. So I prepared in advance. I feel like I'm in a cooking TV show. So I prepared in advance this oven pan and this paper for the oven. I'm going to, it's called isi miyaki style. I'm going to crumble it. Excuse me for the noise. And now I'm going to open it. It doesn't really help the cauliflower cook better. It just looks nice. And now I'm going to put the cauliflower in the middle. Make sure that the florets are looking upwards, and you want to put it in the oven like that. So now I'm going to put it in the oven for 35, 40 minutes, and you're going to meet me at my living room. So Ro'i, you can now close the camera. Perfect. So welcome to my living room. So let's talk about veganism. So veganism in Israel, people ask me, since I'm a shlicha, I speak a lot with people that, you know, have their own opinion about Israel, or they don't know much about Israel. But the combination of the two words, Israel and veganism, always surprises people when I tell them that Israel is the most vegan country in the world. And today I'm going to try and answer that question, why Israel is the most vegan country in the world. So there are more than million people who are either vegetarian or vegan. And we're talking about a country that is smaller than the size of New Jersey. So, and inside of that country that is smaller than the size of New Jersey, there are 400 vegan cafes and restaurants. So imagine how crazy it is. Imagine how huge the market is. The next thing is that if you're a soldier and in Israel joining the IDF and you're vegan, you don't have to worry because first of all, the chief of staff is vegetarian, and Israel has vegan combat rations. It's those field meals that combat soldiers receive. And you can also ask for vegan boots and berets. So you can be 100% vegan if you are a soldier in the IDF. Now, Domino's Pizza, the big pizza company, launched its first ever vegan pizza in Israel. And we're talking about a worldwide pizza company. And the fact that they chose Israel to be its leader of their vegan line is amazing. And also Ben & Jerry's, the ice cream company, Israel was the second country after USA that Ben & Jerry's launched their vegan ice cream. And the state of Israel is the only country in the world with a special advisor, to the Prime Minister for animal rights issues. Her name is Tal Gilboa, and I will speak about her in a few more minutes. Let me start with kind of like tell you how it all started. What's the history of veganism in Israel? So in 1937, there was a guy named Yehoshua Halevi Horowitz who published the Book of Veganism. Now, it was a type of an index book that gathered in it a lot of articles about veganism from all over the world, from hundreds of years ago, recent articles, and he translated it into Hebrew. 30 years afterwards, in 1969, members of a religious group called the African Hebrew Israelite Nation of Jerusalem settled in Dimona. This is a group that maintain a vegan diet and grows much of its own food. They are originally from Chicago, and they are about 40,000 people from that community, and they make caterings, and you can see a lot of their stores in the big cities in Tel Aviv, Haifa, Jerusalem, and they were the ones who really brought veganism into the conscious of other Israelis, people that lives in Israel. And in 1994, an organization called Animals, they used to be called Anonymous, was established, and they are the oldest organization in Israel for animal rights. And they do, they have special activities for students. So schools in Israel invite them to do advocacy for animal rights. And after that, in 2012, the biggest, most influencing organization in Israel was established. Their name is Vegan Friendly. And this organization provides kind of like a kosher stamps for businesses in all fields that are either 100% vegan or that they have enough variety of vegan products. And they also do lobbying in the Knesset. They do marches, parades, protests. And in the last week, they also launched their first branch in London. So if there are a few people here from the UK, you may see them in the next few weeks. And in 2010, there was a breaking point in Israel. A guy named Gary Yourofsky, who is an American Jewish, published his lecture on YouTube. He is a vegan activist that was arrested 13 times. And I will repeat his name since I can't use the slideshow, so you can Google him afterwards. His name is Gary Yourofsky. He's an American Jewish and a vegan advocate, and he's like the messiah of vegans, especially in Israel. His lecture on YouTube is the most viewed lecture in Israel on YouTube. And it became a phenomenon. A lot of people, including me, have watched this lecture and became vegan after watching that lecture. And in 2014, a woman named Tal Gilboa won the Big Brother reality TV show in Israel. Now, this TV show is a huge deal in Israel. Everyone watches it. Everyone knows what's going on there. And I apologize to the American crowd here. Unlike reality TV shows in America, in Israel, it's less trashy. So they bring to these reality TV shows people from different backgrounds, left-righters, extremely right-wingers, vegans, transgenders, people who became religious, people who abandoned religion, חוזרים בשאלה, חוזרים בתשובה, יוצאים בשאלה, people from different background. And it's, kind of like an experiment to see what is going to happen. So Tal Gilboa, who was a vegan activist, and she had that straight in your face kind of mentality, she won that TV show, and it's at least hundreds and thousands of people became vegan by simply watching her on the Big Brother. So let's now dive into the reasons why Israel is the most vegan country in the world. When I'm speaking to you, when I'm telling you about like classic Israeli dishes, I will give you a few seconds to think about it. So we're talking about malabi, kugel, falafel, salad, baba ganoush, knei dalach, hummus, jachnun, chalva. So all of these are amazingly delicious Israeli classic dishes, but they are more than that. All of these dishes happens to be also either vegan or vegetarian. So if we will talk about the American cuisine, for example, we're talking about pizza, bagel and lox, Texas barbecue, turkey on Thanksgiving, hamburgers. So all of these are amazingly delicious as well, but unfortunately, they are far beyond vegan. And what I'm trying to show you here is that the Israeli diet that is already 100%, that is largely based on the Mediterranean diet, is already 100% vegan. So the transformation from a non-vegan diet to 100% vegan diet is not that drastic. And most people won't rush into a dramatic change in their life, but a small change, a minor one, one that is hardly felt, this is something more realistic and easier to adapt. So the Israeli cuisine already includes largely amount of legumes, grains, fruits, and vegetables. And Israelis, we are not that, even though we like to say we are meat eaters, we're not that meat eaters if you will compare it to other countries, America or Latin America. Israel is a small, mostly arid country without much room to raise cattle, and the vast majority of beef is important. And another thing when we're talking about the Israeli cuisine is that 75% of Israelis, whether they are secular, religious, traditional, all of them keep kosher. So they are already used to cut certain food out of their diet. And nearly all vegan products are already kosher. So that conscious eating, the fact that you think before you eat, is something very drastic and dramatic when we're talking about a vegan diet. And this conscious eating, once you get used to it, it's very easy to become vegan. And we can conclude from that this food awareness, which comes from the kashrut and the Mediterranean diet, which is almost vegan, is one reason why Israel is a vegan mecca. I'm going to try again to put the slideshow, and we're going to give it one last try. Let me, 1 second. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask. Okay. So we talked about the vegan cuisine. I made such a beautiful slideshow, so it's a shame not to use it. Okay, let's continue. So look at this picture. What do you see here? If you visited Israel, you probably know that this plant is sabra or sabres or cactus. So what does the word sabar means in Hebrew? A sabar or sabra is a Jew born in Israel. It's kind of like a nickname for people who were born in Israel. And the term alludes to a tenacious, thorny desert plant with a thick skin that conceals a sweet and softer interior. And this is the exact way on how to describe a typical Israeli. The Israelis, when we're talking about them, about us, we are supposedly tough on the outside, but delicate and sweet on the inside. The Israelis will cut you in line, drive selflessly, and reckless on the roads. They will have what we call chutzpah, right? So, but if you will ask them for their help, they will turn the whole world upside down for you, even if they just met you in the middle of the street. So why are we Israelis behave like that? There is a famous American Jewish comedian. Her name is Eileen Busler, and she once said that there is only one difference between Jews and Catholic. Jews are born with guilt, where Catholics have to go to school to learn it. And the guilt is in our DNA. And we're a nation that is shaped and designed by the tragedies that have plagued us throughout history. And for thousands of years, we moved from one place to another, seeking for a safe and quiet place to live our lives. So let's talk about the Jewish-Israeli guilt for a second. In my opinion, and it's important to say that this is me speaking from my own point of view as a vegan for the last 7.5 years, the Jewish history of suffering may contribute to a better understanding of the suffering of animals. The lack of progress in the between Israel and the Palestinians is contributing to high rates of veganism in Israel. And animal rights and vegan activists and vegan activism are both social justice movements where each individual can make a direct positive on the lives of other creatures, humans or animals. And now it is worth mentioning that vegan people in Israel come from different political backgrounds. But when you hear, imagine if you're not Israeli, imagine that you are an Israeli for a few seconds. And all you hear in the news constantly is negative things about an ongoing political and security crisis. And all you want to do is to simply fix that situation. And when you are not able to do that, you are automatically looking for other problems that are not necessarily related to that same crisis, but by solving them, it will satisfy you enough and you will get that peace of mind that you are seeking. Now, let me prove what I'm saying now. Can you guess what is the average age of vegans in Israel? The answer is 24, whereas the most common age is 17. And that's explained a lot. These are the ages of, first of all, the millennials, and second of all, teenagers or young adults who are joining the IDF, joining the army, or just finished their military service. So we can simply conclude from that the millennials are tired of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and veganism is a convenient solution that enriches the lives of this generation that seeks peace. Let's talk about the third and last reason why Israel is a vegan mecca. So let me just give you a reminder. First of all, we had the kashrut and the Mediterranean diet. Second of all, we had the Jewish-Israeli guilt that is in our DNA. And now we're going to talk about the last reason. So I remember that the first time I've heard about the farm-to-table trend, it was in an artsy-fartsy restaurant in Brooklyn. And I didn't really understand what the concept was, just that it was, first of all, highly overpriced. And then the waiter explained to me that the produce at the restaurant was purchased directly from a local farmer and the vegetables are fresh served. And I was laughing to myself because, first of all, in Israel, it's not really a trend and it doesn't have a catchy name and it's not overpriced. Most of the time, this is our reality. This is how most restaurant businesses operate. This reality is deeply rooted in the Israeli consciousness. So you have here a picture of a typical kibbutz a few decades ago. And if you haven't heard the word kibbutz yet, the meaning of the word kibbutz is gathering or clustering. And this is a collective community in Israel that was traditionally based on agriculture. And the kibbutzim in Israel produce 40% of Israel's agricultural output. And as of 2019, there are 265 kibbutzim in Israel with almost 200,000 residents. Most fruits and vegetables are cheaper in Israel than in the UK, US, France, or Germany, and sometimes even double the price. And the kibbutzim are actually our, blue and white farm to table trend or movement. And the first kibbutz was founded at the beginning of the 20th century. And this kind of collective economy is deeply rooted in Israeli life, right from the establishment of the state, where many lands were dried and processed to become fertile. And today, the agricultural industry in Israel is rolling billions of dollars every year. So when we speak about economy factors, It also influences people's diet. If you're a family with, let's say, 3.5 children and your social economic situation is not that great, and you're going to do grocery shopping, and the meat and beef and dairy products are much more higher than the legumes, grains, vegetables, and fruits, so you would prefer to, pack your refrigerator with, the second group, the vegan products. I think that, this type of family doesn't really think to themselves, wow, these products are all vegan, but this is what naturally happens most of the time. So these were the three main reasons why Israel is the most vegan country in the world per capita. First of all, we had the Israeli diet and kashrut. After that, we had the Jewish-Israeli guilt. And the third reason was farm-to-table blue and white style. Now, there are a few sub-reasons that I found that we cannot ignore. First of all, it is the influence of global trends. So Israel is a small country, and we tend to look at United States, for example, and to mimic some trends that are happening there or here in my case. Another reason is that in-your-face mentality. Some vegan advocates that work in Israel, and they are very successful, if they will use the same tactics in other countries outside of Israel, they would probably get a complete ignorance from their surrounding. One of the most successful way that those vegan advocates act in Israel is to stand with visual signs of animals that are suffering. And literally they stand like that in front of people who are eating in a meat restaurant or in McDonald's and so on. And, if that will happen in America, in United States, people will simply think that it is rude. But that in-your-face mentality is working here in Israel. The third reason is that, sub-reason is that Israel is a startup nation. So we are a nation of a lot of entrepreneurs. We love globalization, we love modernization, and we always try to find new solutions, practical solutions, new way to make our life better. And veganism, if you look of global awareness of, diet issues, veganism is the answer. The last sub-reason is that Israel is relatively small and young. And if a new trend is happening in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, or in Haifa, it will take less than 24 hours until it will, spread in all of the country. So this is also help us when we're talking about veganism. Now, I see that we don't have any questions in the chat box, but I'm about to sum up, and then we're going to move to the kitchen. So to taste the cauliflower. If you have any questions to ask, now is the time. And let me finish the conversation with a funny story from my years as a student at the university. So during my academic studies, I was vegan back then. I studied international relations and Middle Eastern studies and Islam. And I always thought that the best way to describe the Israeli-Arab conflict was as if we looked at it as if it were a dysfunctional family. Now, the tough, cold dad would be Russia, and the warm and kind mom would be the United States. And that grandmother that is stuck in the house and nobody understands how she still lives and she will actually bury us all is Europe. And the rebellious adolescent daughter who doesn't want to go to college because she thinks that college won't benefit her life, and instead of that, she wants to go and volunteer in an orphanage in Africa, is Israel. And her younger brother, that was fighting with his big sister since the day he was born are the Arab states. And the parents are quite worried about this situation, both about the future of their daughter, who does not want to go to college, and the example that she gives her little brother. So one day, this family decided to invite guests for dinner, and the parents, Russia and United States, begged their children not to do something embarrassing during the meal. And so the guests arrived, people went to sit on the table, the family said, they started eating, and one guest asked the girl, Israel, how come she doesn't have any meat on her plate? And the girl, Israel, replied, I'm vegan because I think that peace begins in our plate. And, you know, we just had, you know, we started this conversation with a few interruptions from the outside. And for me, being a shlicha and speaking about Israel, most of the time, unfortunately, it surrounds around negative things, the political crisis, you name it. And when I'm combining these two words, Israel and veganism, it kind of gives me an opportunity to shed a positive light on Israel, one that, you know, we barely think about, and especially when speaking to people that barely know Israel. And we cannot ignore, even if you disagreed with the reasons that I just named, we cannot ignore the fact that there is a huge population of vegans in Israel, and that the Prime Minister is aware of that need of people to reduce animal product, and our president is vegetarian, our chief of staff in the army is vegetarian. So we can't ignore that reasons. I see one question from the chat. Are there any famous rabbis in Israel who support veganism? It can be really helpful for encouraging this trend. So yes, there is one famous rabbi who is kind of like a celebrity for religious vegans in Israel. His name is Asa Keisar, and I'm going to write his name here in the chat box. He does a lot of vegan advocacy, especially to the religious communities, the ones that are, you know, very close, and they barely open themselves to new ideas, not to speak about veganism. So the fact that this rabbi goes to this closed and private community and speak to them about veganism is, you know, something that is very successful, because once a big rabbi of a big community in Israel decided something, then the day after all of his community follows. I'm going to check now.
We have a few questions here, if you wanted to read you out.
No problem. Yeah, you can read them, and in the meantime, I will drink some water.
So first is from Rachel. She's asking what temperature for the oven to roast the cauliflower and how long?
Okay, so the cauliflower is in the oven in 430 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 220 degrees Celsius. And after this session, you will see the recipe in our Facebook page, WZO Department for Diaspora Affairs. I received another question. We have a vegan restaurant in Santa Cruz, California. How can we promote our packaged products in Israel? Just, you know, speaking when I'm trying to do vegan advocacy, I'm thinking about the person or the crowd that stands in front of me. If I was speaking in front of, I don't know, new or young mothers, or in front of, you know, a female crowd, I will talk about the connection that some animals may have to their newborns. But I don't want to do vegan advocacy because this is not the main reason of this session. It's simply to speak about veganism in Israel, but there are thousands of ways on how to encourage people to go vegan. Ori, do we have more questions?
Yes, the second question, do you think this is a passing trend, or will Israel become mostly vegan?
So the statistical bureau of the organization, the official organization for statistics in Israel, they think that in 7 more years, the numbers of vegans in Israel is going to double itself. So by the end of 2027, there are going to be almost 250,000 people that are vegan in Israel. And, you know, excluding vegetarians, which the number is higher there. So it's not at all a trend. Veganism is here to stay in Israel and throughout the world. And now that there is a direct advisor for the Prime Minister for animal rights issues, this is also something that we cannot ignore. After that woman, Tal Gilboa, was nominated, a lot of other political parties in Israel saw that there is a huge buzz around veganism. So they nominated a lot of speakers for their own parties to speak about animal rights. So it's all a question of politics and economy. And we see that there is a huge need to talk about that in Israel. So it's not going to disappear.
Okay. I think I'll allow you to go to the oven so you won't burn.
Okay. So you will meet me in a few seconds in my oven, in my kitchen. Ro'i, you can close the camera and mute me here. Okay, so let's open the oven. I just want to make sure that you can all hear me and see me.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to open the oven and see what happened. I set up the timer for 40 minutes and there are 6 more minutes to go. So we are going to see what will happen. It really depends on the type of oven that you have. Some ovens may want you to cook it for more than 40 minutes. Some of them would want less. But when you see like caramel colored on the sides, that's when you know it's ready. So let me take it out of the oven now.
What's the temperature again? I'm asked on the chat.
So it's 430 degrees Fahrenheit and 220 degrees Celsius. Okay. Ori, can you see the cauliflower?
Yes, just push it a bit to the flowers, to your left.
Okay. So we can see that the florets are not yet brown. I had to let it stay in the oven until the end of the time that I set the timer for 40 minutes and even 45. I will let it cool for a few seconds and I will just tell you that this recipe is a part of our cooking workshop, Cooking in Hebrew program, I apologize, where we cook not only vegan dishes, but typical Israeli dishes, and we discuss them afterwards. If you wish to learn more, you can write us again in our Facebook page, and our program manager and Einat will be more than happy to respond. And the iVision Live continues next week with one more session. We are going to celebrate Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day, and we're going to screen unseen scenes of David Ben-Gurion and his unique insights about Jerusalem. If you watched our last two sessions about the movie David Ben-Gurion Epilogue, we are going to show some new unseen scenes. So you're not going to watch the same things again, and we're going to have a Q&A discussion and session with Yariv Moser, the director and the filmmaker. It's going to happen on May 21st, the same time, 8 p.m. Israel time. So let me taste the cauliflower now. So I'm just, tearing it out just like a typical Israeli with my hands. And I have here some tahini and some parsley. So I'm simply going to dip it inside, and I'm going to add a little bit, oh, it's hot, a little bit of parsley. You're all going to watch me now eating. Absolutely delicious. So it's a extremely easy recipe. You just, you were aware of how much easy it was. It didn't take me a lot of time. The recipe is going to be published in our Facebook page. I apologize for the problems we had in the beginning of the Zoom. We can never know, who is going to enter since we open it for everyone. But thank you for being patient, and thank you for being today here with us. On behalf of the Department for Diaspora Affairs, I wish you all rak briut. Please stay safe and healthy, and thank you for joining us today. Shalom.